Yep. Ready. On? All right. All right, guys. Sorry for the late start, but thank you. This is a great full room, and I'm really excited. My name's Nina, and I'm with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. Yay! Thank you. Thank you. Wow. So we are really excited that you guys are all here, and we have two big announcements that are going to happen at the end, so we really hope you'll stick with us. But before that, we're going to set the stage for kind of the theme of the day with a great conversation led by my fearless leader, Lindsey Parker, the Chief Technology Office for the district.
Oh, thanks, Nina. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Yeah. So rising to the challenge as a topic for a panel discussion, it's a heavy high bar to set. But I'm excited because I said to this group right before we started that if I was to pick my sort of starting five for any kind of innovation challenge that I might want to solve in any city in the world, this would be the five. This is a really cool group of people that I am just so delighted that they said yes to joining us here today. I'm going to let them all introduce themselves because I think it's always better when you get to tell us us your name and what you're doing and what you're up to. But just wanted to kind of impress upon you that we all know, I have the great honor, Mayor Bowser asked me to be the Chief Technology Officer in January of this year. I started in February, and I truly believe that I have the best job in the world because we've got this robust tech industry. We've got awesome innovators within and outside of government here in Washington, D.C., all ready to kind of make sure that we're ready for the digital age, right? And sort of where we need to be in the future to make sure that we've got this vibrant city that everybody can be a part of. And so I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let everybody else introduce themselves, but super excited about the conversation at hand. Jay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Give it up again for our CTO and Octo. Really deserve a lot of credit. I'm Jay Melder. I'm Mayor Bowser's Assistant City Administrator, and I oversee what we call the Internal Services Cluster within DC government. It really is the business side and the back office side of the organization of government. So in my cluster, I have partners like Lindsey over Octo, the Department of General Services, which is our construction and real estate arm, the Department of Human Resources, our Office on Contracting and Procurement, Risk Management, Disability Rights, and all of our labor relations and collective bargaining. So we really engaged in how do we make the organization of government smarter, leaner, more efficient. And that's really the mayor's charge to us, and that's what I lead.
Did you catch that? He's my boss. Yeah? All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Keisha Mims. I'm with the mayor's newly created office called Office for the Eastern River Services. We are charged with marshaling services for residents, marshaling resources and services for residents in Ward 7 and 8. And I know you are probably like, I never heard of that office, but that's okay. We're new, and you're going to hear about us in the future. We're doing great things. And Lindsey used to be my boss, since we're talking about bosses.
Lindsey was everybody's boss.
That's
No. And George.
Lindsey wasn't my boss. Just clarification. No, it's great to be working with Lindsey and the team. So I'm, as you can probably tell, not from around here. I'm from London, but I founded an organisation called Tech City Ventures about 5 years ago. And I used to previously work in UK government, and I really saw back then, I worked more on the kind of supplier side. I was looking to go out and work with new companies and technologies, and I saw this huge gap between some of the new innovations, startups and solutions actually getting into government. So I kind of set out on my mission to go and look at how in cities around the world we can then bridge that gap. And we've been doing that for 5 years with over 15 different cities in which we're in partnerships with. And I'm really keen just to learn more about the DC ecosystem and what you guys have here that's special, and see if we can support in any way.
Hi, I'm Shripti Shah, and I'm also not from around here and originally from London, but I've been proud to call DC my home for the last decade. Best city in the world.
I didn't tell her to say that.
It's a competition.
At Deloitte, I'm mainly kind of focused on two areas of work. I lead projects in our strategy practice where we help government agencies and nonprofits really develop robust, what we call theories of change. So really understanding what change they want to achieve and what are the best set of interventions they can bring together in order to achieve those ends. And I was lucky enough to work with DEMPED a couple of years ago and lead the team that did the economic development strategy for this great city. Before that, I also was in the UK government. I worked in our finance ministry, and my job was to essentially define the business of government across everything that it achieves. So to create metrics for everything it wants to do, from increase meaningful life expectancy or reduce inequality in life expectancy, all the way through to kind of the impact of efforts on peace in the Middle East, and how do you quantify and hold agencies to account for the change that they will deliver for citizens. And I also lead our behavioral economics practice at Deloitte, which harnesses the science of how humans make decisions and how we're so imperfect to help us do the right thing and conform in the right ways.
Right? Yeah, this is a big panel. So I think one of the things that, you've got sort of varied perspectives here, and on this sort of 60th day of 90 plus degree weather, right, in Washington, D.C., in the middle of October, you're thinking about some of the big challenges that cities have to face and cities have to think about: resiliency, climate change, cyber attacks, lots of different things, right? All the things. We really need to sort of start thinking about how we're organizing ourselves, right? Whether it's around a challenge, whether it's around an innovation goal, to make sure that we're getting ready for those big challenges and really solving them in a way that makes sense for our city. And so, to that point, a question for everybody. I think one of the things is let's just make sure that everybody in the audience feels like they're kind of part of this, right? So who's the community that we really need to make sure is at the table to talk about solving some of these sort of getting ready for the 21st century city? Anybody want to start?
I think we need everybody at the table. I mean, I think
Boss.
I came up in policymaking in housing and homelessness space, both in the Obama administration and in the first term of Mayor Bowser's administration. And really that was, that effort really took traction when we realized that there's a big stakeholder group and you have to have all of the voices around the table, especially those voices who are experiencing the problem that you're trying to solve and who can articulate it better than anybody in the realm. And I think, in government we can, because bureaucracies are designed this way, is to fit in silos and to make things, move at an appropriate pace and be slow and thoughtful about things. But it really is our job, I think, to disrupt that a bit, to break those silos, to make sure that government is a place where the community comes together, where people come together, that we're sharing data, that we're learning about the problems we face from the city, from the community, and that we're all engaged in and trying to create solutions and policy solves for those issues. So I think the table has to be pretty big, and I think that it has to be accessible for everyone to want to come to it and to be a part of it in a real and meaningful way.
Definitely. Do you guys have any perspectives from sort of, big solves that you've seen in other cities and sort of the community that needs to come together? Any levers that we need to be thinking about or stakeholders that we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think one point is around leveraging technology. I think in the last few years we've seen lots of ways that people can use technology for civic engagement. But I think it's also important to note that we can't use technology for technology's sake, and sometimes not everything needs a technical solution. And coming from me, actually, I'm a kind of a technologist, so I'm approaching this with a bit of cynicism, but ultimately it's about how you augment your relationship with people using technology. It's not about replacing that with tech. So I think something I've seen in London that's been done really, really well is, for example, we now have something called Talk London, which is a way for people to kind of submit ideas, issues, ideas that they have around specific challenges for their city. That actually starts off, though, as an in-person listening exercise at City Hall. And then all the feedback and ideas is all posted online where people can then share and collaborate. So I think it's around putting people first and creating that conversation with individuals before you then try and just deliver or deploy a technology app or website.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, just adding to that, I think that community engagement is really crucial and there should be no exceptions to that. I had the privilege of working for the European Commission in Brussels in the late 90s, and I had some programs in Northern Ireland, and it was just after the Good Friday Agreement and the Mitchell negotiations. And there's an intrinsic, centuries old division in Northern Ireland that we are very familiar with, but the solution had to engage former paramilitary leaders. And so the way that the peace efforts were conducted was that, really opposing sides on deep sectarian divides came together through a committee to decide and share resources and determine collectively where resources on community building should be spent. These are the first time they'd ever actually gone into a room together. They'd spent pretty much most of their lives doing terrible things and had been in prison for doing terrible things. And so actually you can't solve a deep intrinsic community problem without all of the facets of a community, and particularly the community leaders that may be in some cases part of the problem have to also then be part of the solution.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jay's answer probably best summarized what I would say. You have to, it has to be everybody. And I always think of DC and from the lens of old and new, because I grew up here, so it's like the DC today is not the DC that I grew up with, and so I always look at it from the perspective like, are we engaging those who've been here for a long time, and how do we do that? And that always looks a little different oftentimes. So everybody.
That's right. That's right. And you helped Adrian Sutton, who's on our team, think through some of the ways in which we were bringing technology to senior citizens in some of those communities that so that they could also be a part of the future as well. So I commend you on that. The next sort of area that so we have sort of different perspectives all up here, and I'm going to kind of ask, what can other perspectives do for you? So how I guess, what can the civic tech community really do and help you with in your new role?
I think that the civic tech community can help me in my new role and just the city in general. And as long as we're continue to be open about our data and our information, we have places where the community can come to the table to understand what government's thinking about problems. The civic community is oftentimes the place where they can really translate the problem into a new visibility for us, and we can understand that we may have policy solves for this, or the policy solves we have just aren't working because somebody smarter or with the time or with the expertise was able to look at that data and show it to us in a different way. So I think that's where I feel like the civic tech community in DC can really be helpful for the government, for us specifically in internal services, to piggyback on what you were talking about. Lindsey, you were the one that taught me, coming from agencies, I always thought that technology could solve all my problems. I just need an app for that, right? Can I get an app for that? And really what you taught me, and what it's clear when you sit and think about it, is technology isn't going to solve your problems, you're going to solve your problems. It's a process, and technology is a tool for you to do it or to help sustain it, but it isn't going to solve your problem. And I think we need those technologists to come to the table to point pictures where government isn't being as efficient or isn't as smart as it can, technology or not.
Yeah, no, and I think we all know that every agency in the DC government that's asked me for something, I've said, have you done your business process reengineering first before I give you a technology solution? So on the flip side, what have you guys seen in terms of, how should governments organize themselves in order to engage the civic tech community? Like, what are good examples of it? How should we be thinking about organizing ourselves in a better way?
So just say, I think not to sound like I'm giving you guys too much credit, but DCx, I mean, that's a great initiative because it's centered around challenges. And I think there needs to be some signposting for people to be able to come to the table. But before you create those signposts, you have to work with people to decide what they are. And it can certainly be based on data and how you create challenges for your city and looking at the data. But you also need that opinion, that voice, and to have people also contribute to that. So I think challenges are like an amazing way to create that first step with the community around civic engagement. It's saying this is a problem, how do we then come together to solve it? It's not saying this is how we're going to solve it or what we need to do to solve it. It's an open, inclusive question. And I think some of the solutions today that we've seen through DCx are really symbolic of that. They're quite diverse and they're spread across many different areas. And I think often when we try and determine solutions, we get very turnkey. We say, here's a problem, it's square, let's fit a solution straight in there. Well, actually, we can miss out on really amazing ideas by having that more open scope and seeing what people that we otherwise wouldn't have included might actually come to say.
That's right. And I think that's why I'm so excited about sort of the fact that we are this capital of the inclusive innovation, and sort of what makes us unique is that we're thinking through some of those different solutions. Now I have 2 minutes left, and I'm supposed to allow you guys to ask some questions. I get 10 more minutes. Oh, okay. I was like, okay.
Already got the content here.
I was trying to move us along. So now that I've opened it up, I'll just let, does anybody have a question for the group? And if not, I can keep going. This is like a solid group of people. All right. A member of our police department, Metropolitan Police Department. Yeah?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm curious because you're at the tops of your agencies or in the government. What challenges do you see generally amongst the agency directors or CEO space with bringing and adopting new technology. Most of the 35, 36-year-olds grew up as technology natives, but most of your C-suite folks have not. And how has that challenged you as top administrators in the city to bring new technology in when some of your senior staff may not be accepting it?
I think first and foremost it goes back to what we're saying, that people seem to think that technology is going to be just a complete solve, silver bullet for everything. So really it's about getting around what are we using the technology to actually support and solve. But I think that especially in some of the issues that I tackle in internal services is so many things can be more efficient through automation, digitization, how we work, the devices that we use, what kind of working norms we have as an organization. And those things are really slow to change, especially in some industries that have, kind of just have a core of set working norms like human resources or others, where it really is a kind of a one-to-one thing, and those information systems or those different types of platforms or those new ways of working together, the change management there can be more challenging than in some other places that are maybe more keen to technology or new ways to working.
Yeah, I would like say ditto to all of that, and that everybody believes that technology is sort of the silver bullet. And I guess I would be interested to hear about some of the sort of change indicators, change management that you've worked on with other clients and other governments, and sort of what are some of the things that we need to sort of think about to get ready for laying out that roadmap of challenges that George talked about, and accepting the solutions.
Yeah, I think the key is not, for the role of government is to not get in the way and be very agnostic about the technology solution, but be very laser focused on the end result that they're seeking to achieve. And by that I mean the end outcome. And so we often think if I spend more money on something, if I talk about resources like dollars, I've somehow solved a problem, but all I've done is written a check. And then if I say, okay, well, I'm using that check to buy hospitals and doctors, you say, okay, well, I'm at least getting some efficiency, economy from it. I'm getting as many hospitals and doctors as I possibly can, and I talk about inputs. And then if I'm a bit more sophisticated, I might say, well, how many heart operations can I buy with those? And so I talk about productivity. The problem is all I've done is I've gone all of this way and worked out how to buy the wrong thing cheaper. If I'd have said, how do I want to reduce mortality through heart disease, I open myself up to technology, innovations, preventative healthcare. Actually, a heart operation is a very inefficient kind of, in terms of cost per life saved, way of dealing with the heart disease and mortality rates. And so why don't we say, we want to tackle this problem. This is how we define it. This is how we'll measure success, and then let the creative commons, be that community organizations, be that technological, etc., come together as an ecosystem, because very few problems are linear in that way. They are complicated because humans are complicated, and they require many different facets. They might require social services, they might require behavioral interventions, they might require technological genome solutions, and all of that comes together if you don't tie yourself to buying the wrong thing cheaper, but instead you have a community that's based on an end result.
Love it. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And one other point I'd say is how, actually do you bring everyone to the table? Like we talk about this model of what we call co-creation. And essentially this is where actually the city and government is brought to the table from day one. So if you look at some companies like very successful taxi companies that I won't specifically mention, but for example, when was that conversation with the city? When did that start? Often, very high growth SMEs and lots of ones that we work with, startups, and their investors tend to forget about actually the people and the environment that they're actually deploying and looking to scale their solutions into. And of course, that only works, it's a stopgap because it only works for a certain amount of time. And then what happens? Well, there might be over-regulation, or there might be something that actually impacts then innovation really scaling. And for us, we're really thinking about how can you bring cities to the table from day one to be part of that co-creation process of new solutions. And I think a big part of it was something that Jay mentioned earlier, and that's how you bring assets to the table as a city that allow everyone to have an open field to innovate. So data, for example, is a really key thing, and actually something that can often be quite a political process. Like, let's just release the data. How do we move past that and think about what data do we need to release? How can that data be ready and in the right place for entrepreneurs, innovators to actually work on? I feel like there's a bit of a gap there still.
Totally. Yeah. Neat. Did you?
Any other questions?
Oh, there's more questions, but did you want to add something?
Well, I think that just something that struck me as we were talking here, I wanted to come talk about problem solving, but really there's so much power in defining the problem, and for so long that power has been misused. And we can look at like examples of where I came up from in homelessness and housing policy, where you have people calling it vagrancy or filth, and a crime that needs to be solved versus it being inherent in the name that it's just less a home. So I think this whole idea of creating a bigger space for community to come together to think about what the problem is we're solving, which is this challenge thing you were talking about. Because defining the problem, I think, is probably the most powerful exercise in all of it, and something you were getting to too with the heart disease. Like, how are we defining the problem?
That's right. And I think I try to tell people, let's not talk about, we talk about data-driven decisions a lot. I like outcome-oriented more so, right? So, and to your point, those are inputs, but not necessarily sort of the outcome that we need to focus on. So great question. We answered it. We went I answered it all different types of ways. But now we've got another question from the back of the room. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So in regards to being more inclusive and having the community be more involved in the process, what strategy are you going to utilize to open the floodgates of allowing the community to actually have a voice? Instead of it being more of a who's who, or I'm here because I know this person, but really allowing a more diverse group of people to really be able to give information that can really lead to change for the better, but necessarily they may not know, they may not be connected to people in the government or people with the city. How are you going to open the floodgates for that level of inclusivity?
So that was like my question that I worked on all night, so I'm going to tackle it. So the question is essentially like, how do we lower the barriers, right? And so when I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't even think that, for me, I don't think about the tech ecosystem in DC. Like, to me, DC is like a government town, right? And that is how I look at DC. So it's like, so to me, lowering the barrier, part of it is just letting people know that this exists, right? Like, I don't think the average person thinks about, like, there's this whole tech ecosystem here that you can access. And so I think the tech ecosystem has to do a better job, or has to do, not better, but has to do a little bit more to make sure there's an authentic connection, right? And not just the authentic connection, but an encouragement to enter. Like, you can enter, this is something that you can access. I think that because I was like, and I'm educated, right? And I don't really even think about it. And I just don't know if your average Joe who's not educated doesn't really have a government friend who can tell them about what's going on. Like, how are they gonna know? And I think that I kind of put the burden on the tech system itself, because I think you gotta just do a little bit more, right? You have to, I think we fall flat at the authentic connection part, right? We're like, we have this program and it's open to everybody, but like, are you really going to the communities where you have like a lower representation of people, and making sure that people there are connected? And I always think about, of course, east of the river. And so for me, it's like, it's not just saying I have this program for low income residents, right? You have to make sure you have the person that can connect to these residents, right? It's not necessarily, it might not be you, right? It might be, you have to make sure you have the right person talking and reaching out. And so that was my little spiel.
No, and Mayor Bowser came into office 5 years ago now and challenged us, and Keisha was part of that team, challenged her outreach team to engage more DC residents than ever before. And so we've had to think through different ways to do that. We've tested different ways of doing it. Keisha has been at the forefront of helping us think through community leaders that we need to make sure feel comfortable in the conversation, are engaged in the conversation. And then the other thing that is kind of ironic, when I've worked for 2 different mayors in DC. We used to have a lot of things in the Wilson building, or in, central downtown DC, instead of going to communities, making sure that we're at schools, making sure that we're at libraries, making sure that we're at recreation centers. And I think that's sort of opened up a lot of different, I love our DC library system. If you were to look at what's going on at libraries right now, they are really thinking about how to bring the digital age to sort of the local level. There's a lot of programming. It's very exciting. But Shruti, you've thought a lot about pipelines and making sure that all members of the community feel like they can kind of see themselves in a new opportunity in the tech industry. What can we learn from some of the things that you've worked on?
So I think one of the things is, yes, there's obviously an employer has a set of skills they seek. And there's a community out there that may not have those skills, and so then it's a matter of kind of empowering them with those skills and giving them opportunities to acquire those skills in a way that suits their lifestyle and their needs and the other pressures on their lives. But it's also contingent on kind of addressing unconscious bias in hiring practices and what employers are saying that they need compared to actually what they really need. And what are the inherent prejudices that are going on, and how do we, without blaming employers, how do we help them secure access to the very best talent that this city has? And how do we make sure that there is equity in that whole pipeline and system? And then there's the other thing of actually addressing from an individual perspective, what I call not poverty of skills, but poverty of aspiration. Because if everyone around you has never gone into this industry, you don't know anyone who's there, then you actually don't even realize that this is an option for you, even though you could be like the best skilled in your class, or you may be like a math whiz or whatever, and ideal to go into this pipeline, into this wonderful new tech world. But until we kind of show people that that is a legitimate expectation for them, and that we don't kind of build up false hopes, but we do actually inspire them to get the skills, then we also need to address that poverty of aspiration, unconscious bias in hiring, and also build very robust pipelines for people to acquire those skills.
Yep. And demystifying tech. We got to do that. So, actually, perfect. Yeah, Adam, you have a question.
Yeah. So one of the projects that the company.
There's a microphone behind you. Yep.
One of the projects that the company that I'm working with is focused on right now is in Birmingham, Alabama, and we found some really interesting insights. For example, the African American women in the 30% of lowest income neighborhoods, their number one news source is actually Fox News, which is really surprising. To that end, we figured out a few things, and I'm wondering what you all have seen in terms of unusual insights that have surprised you or helped you shape how you go about your business. Because obviously, we want to get as many people involved as possible, but you have exposure to many things that other people don't. What surprised you in your day-to-day?
That's a nice last question. I'll give you some time to think about it, because Adam I was most impressed by a platform that Adam had stood up at Fosterly when he was still running Fosterly to help make sure that we were taking bias out of internship matching in the tech space, and had done just a tremendous effort of coming up with an algorithm that would let people sort of match up without any, you wouldn't see anybody's picture, you wouldn't see anybody's name, or any other details that would have that sort of unconscious bias sort of step in before the interview. So huge shout out there. Ready?
Repeat the question one more time.
Adam, what do you want to get at?
Yeah, so we found some really interesting stuff, and the challenge that I wrestle with is not everybody has access like the earlier person has. And the insights that you guys have, these are the primary things we need to focus on, the drivers.
Okay,
What
I
are
like
some
it.
of those things that other people might not be thinking of?
Okay. Yeah.
I can go with one example. It's not a tech example, but it is around improving access. I was privileged enough to be to attend the University of Oxford in the early 90s. And when we analysed the data for admissions, we realised that if you had exactly the same grades, two people with exactly the same grades, you were twice as likely to be admitted if you were white, you were twice as likely to be admitted if you went to a private school, and you were twice as likely to be admitted if you were male. So by the time I got there, I was the 16th as likely as my white, privately educated male colleague to be studying physics at Oxford. And so we actually created something called the Oxford Access Scheme. And it's still going to this day, almost 30 years later. God, I'm old. Anyway, and it was basically, we got the few minority students who were at Oxford, and we did outreach to the schools in the poorest neighborhoods that had a large section of minority students, and we met with the students who were doing the best at school, and we helped them through the process. They came during their school holidays and stayed, because they'd never known anyone to go to university. They stayed on our floors and in sleeping bags and went to lectures with us. We helped them coach, we got them extra coaching over the summer, and in that first year we got 5 people in, and the second year we got 30 people in, and we worked with the university to address admissions biases. And now it's still going to this gate. And the next year we got 30 wasn't because we had more volunteers, but because someone in the year below knew someone in the year above in that school who had gone to university. And on my very, very first visits, one of those people that I encouraged to apply and got in was a woman called Roshnara Ali. She became the first Bangladeshi woman member of parliament in the UK, and was actually one of the 6 people who took Boris Johnson to court over the breaking of parliament. So she's really kind of like knocking it out of the park. But she's an inspiration to Londoners in one of the poorest parts of town. And so it's kind of addressing poverty of aspiration, but creating a pipeline of role models that can really kind of make a change in an ecosystem.
Great. Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah.
I
I had a nugget and I've lost it. No, it's back.
Okay.
So I sit on the Mayor of London's. I chair the Mayor of London's Higher Skills Advisory Board, and one of the things I was really exposed to there, and this is also in the case of New York, I did some analysis, was the gap in the unemployment for people later on in their careers, and actually the barriers for those individuals being able to get back into work. So I'm talking more generally here about not necessarily specific groups, generally across the spectrum. People from different backgrounds really struggle, particularly after redundancy, to actually find those new skills to be able to get into new roles. And I think that's quite a systemic problem that people sometimes don't think about, in terms of actually it's not about getting those people or trying to help them with finding a new job. It's about first helping them with actually the new skills to find that job. And a lot of those individuals, like where we see the low-hanging fruit, and of course bringing it back to tech here, is actually in digital skills and the demand for that we see in our economy, because those people are often breadwinners, and they often, through their own struggles, then inflict damage on the people around them, just through the fact that there's socio-economic factors at play. So I think that's just a certain spot where I think can have a lot of impact, with more focus on reskilling. And then really quickly, actually we also saw in some further analysis that startups tend to be the most kind of agnostic in terms of when it comes to hiring. And of course there is an unconscious bias associated with anyone, but across the UK industry we see that startups present the best opportunity for new people that haven't otherwise had a job or come from maybe lower socioeconomic backgrounds to be able to actually have opportunities. And I see startups as almost like the first lily pad for those individuals to develop the skills in a less harsh environment to be able to potentially foster future opportunities. And the final point on that was, you got a final point on the final point. No, I've talked enough, it's fine.
No, but I actually can't think of a better way to kind of close us out and also lead us into sort of the next series of conversations. You're going to hear from some of our startups, some of our entrepreneurial folks answering the challenge that we threw out around public health and public safety in the DCx challenge. We're going to see demos. And then you're going to hear a little bit about what we're trying to do to better organize ourselves as the tech ecosystem, to communicate, to partner, to ensure that we've got mentorship opportunities and internship opportunities. And we're telling the stories of those people that are from communities of color, that are from, that look like us, that are leading the charge in parts of our community. So can't wait. I'm not gonna hold you back from seeing these demos and getting a little insight on where we're going in the next few months here. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. Yeah, good conversation.
All right. So So thank you very much, panelists. We will transition. We do need to, some of these reserved seats were for the judges, if we can just find some space, or we're going to have a 5-minute break. I don't want to keep you guys from having some lunch. We put some out especially for you, but there are thieves in the hallway. So if you want to go grab a lunch real fast and you can eat it in here during the demo, that is totally cool. You can hide it under your chair. And then we're going to do a 5-minute transition to the demo. All right, we're gonna get started here soon. Can I get safe lane, Dan?
I know that he's right outside.
I was like, I got them.
Downloaded the slides? So we can't put it in. I don't know if they will be able to. Yeah. If you have internet access, you can just go to the public link and that would play.
Are we running on a desktop?
Yeah. I can download. You can't download here.
It's a YouTube video, so I don't think so. It might embed a streaming link, but you have to test that. But if you want, you can click on the link and it would open up a new tab. You have to go on your desktop though, so it might not look that good.
You can also subscribe.
Do you want me
I
to
don't
have-
really care if we don't have it.
Yeah.
It's fine by me.
Are you sure? Because I can have Ben go first and then you guys.
Why don't we give it a try? Let Ben go first and then see if we can resolve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's
okay.
Ben?
Sorry, Ben.
Sorry, Ben.
Hey.
I know we're running a little bit late, but I want to know from a timing perspective.
Yes. Let me double check. Hey Nina, time. Are we?
I think we're good. I'll just break it up.
Okay.
I think it's clear nobody's paying attention to you.
Actually, I'm gonna take your
I'm gonna
seat.
go with the seat.
Yes. Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they ran right through it, but they were awesome.
Yeah.
Those are really good.
Awesome. Thanks.
Two announcements we made.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Okay. Where are they? I think they're just scattered. There's a few
All right.
scattered on.
Let's let everybody back in the room so they're not. Will you guys go there? Great. Okay. I'm sorry? It's going to be a revolving door. You can. Okay. You guys can go right there in the front. All right. Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you guys for coming. So we, this last summer, launched the DCx DCx Challenge that was in partnership with US Ignite and Verizon's 5G Lab, and partners with Mapbox and our friends at East of the River Services to explore the future of technology, very apt for the Futures Forum, because 5G is not here yet, right? I mean, sorry, Tiffany, it's sort of here. So the technology demos that you're about to see, I want everybody to promise me you're going to come with an open mind of what the possibility is and not what is that is deployable tomorrow, because it's all about how we can take the insight that we heard from the panel earlier to find those solutions that are really going to solve these critical challenges. DCx's focus this time around was for public safety, which that's huge. That could be everything from walking down the street just safely to transportation and other public safety options that affect our first responders and our the Department of Transportation. So we had a wide range of subject matter experts that were part of it. And we also included public health, because why not? Make it more complicated. So we had a lot of subject matter experts that were talking about the combination of first responders and access to quality health care and what is the current health ecosystem of DC. So we've got 3 amazing teams that we found through this challenge, all of them local, which was fantastic. 1 each from Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So I think that was pretty cool. And I really hope you guys learn a little bit about what they have to offer, ask them really tough questions. We're going to save all the questions towards the end, and maybe you'll be inspired to work with them in the future. So we are going to actually skip forward and go to Haven first, because I didn't realize there was a video, and so I need to go figure out a video. Why am I pointing it towards the screen? I work for technology, guys. All right. Sorry, Safe Lane just showed all your slides. So this is Ben, and he is from, I messed it up.
Not sure.
It's like just going. Is it just playing? This is Octo's Technology Corner, where we solve all of our tech problems. All right, talk amongst yourselves. I will go 1 second.
Well, the surprises are given away now.
Good. Nice. Do this.
Okay, let's give it a try. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. We are Haven, and we are a digital health platform. And what we do is we protect people as they navigate their healthcare. We do that in 3 ways. We protect people from low-quality healthcare. We protect people from really expensive medical bills. And we protect people by making sure that they get the healthcare outcomes that they need. My name is Ben Pugh, and I'm the CEO and founder of Haven. We're based out of Navy Yard here in Washington, D.C., so come give us a holler. And we've put together a team of software engineers, hardware engineers, data scientists, and insurance executives. And what we're doing is we're really moving the needle on how healthcare gets delivered in this country. So I want to start off by talking about this one. So insurance card. So there's a whole debate, and it's going to be one of the hottest topics in the 2020 election, which is healthcare. And there's a lot of discussion about access. Should healthcare be a right? Healthcare is too expensive. And there's actually a lot of us who feel like both are true. But I have just a small story to kind of talk about my experience with it. So I like to talk about Mercedes. One day, she's in DC cooking dinner in the kitchen, and she accidentally cuts her finger. And again, she goes and she runs to her purse and she grabs this. And she's trying to figure out, in the middle of an emergency cut, how do I go get my health care? And this actually wasn't able to help solve that problem. So instead, what she does is she opens up Google Maps, types in urgent care, and goes to the nearest place down the street. And we come to the now closed Metro Immediate and Primary Care. And ironically, this is actually where the real pain starts to begin. We get charged an incredibly high amount For something as simple as 2 stitches, we end up paying over $500. And this is because the urgent care is out of network for us. The quality is really low. 126 bad reviews online. And if we'd known this, we probably would have gone somewhere else. But the worst part of all of this is the healthcare outcome. We hoped to leave there with a couple stitches in her finger, and instead we left in a cast. And we didn't get the healthcare outcome we needed, and we actually had to go get a second opinion. She ends up missing 2 days of work. I think we've all kind of had a story like this, but it's sad that in 2019, something as simple as a finger cut could put you out of work for 2 days. And the truth is that navigating healthcare is incredibly hard, it's incredibly expensive, and it's just downright scary sometimes. We interviewed over 20 people, and it took the person on average 30 minutes to find their in-network urgent care, and typically involved having a laptop in front of them. If you make the wrong decision, you could be several $1,000s in debt just for your medical bills. And it's actually estimated by the US government that over $100 billion gets wasted in this category every single year. And again, the scariest part too is that you could have a medical emergency and you don't end up with the care that you need. And so we wanted to take a pause here and think about, well, what if we took the insurance card and took a modern take on it? What would this look like if we used technology to create a solution that could actually guide people to the care that they needed? And so I'm excited to announce, even though that you guys have already seen the preview, which is the Haven Safe card. And SAFE stands for Self-Action for Everyone. What this is an internet-connected smart card that empowers individuals to take the decision-making into their own hands. This device connects directly to the internet using the 5G infrastructure and is able to provide healthcare routing on the fly. And we do this by having 3 buttons on the Haven Safe card. The first button you press, and it sends a push notification to your phone. And it gives you the urgent care options that are available to you within the city. Here are the 20 that are available within Washington, D.C., and here are the 8 that your insurance will pay for. And this is huge because when you're in the middle of an emergency, you don't have time to do the research. But simply making that decision switch lowers the healthcare costs by $3,000 to $4,000 per case. The second button you press, and it sends an emergency text message to your emergency contacts. Your mom, your dad, your significant other, your brother, your sister, your roommate. A lot of times when you're stuck in the middle of these emergencies, you don't have time to craft paragraph-long instructions to your cared ones. Here, 1 button, and everyone that you need to be informed is now informed. And then the third and final button, you press, and it triggers an ambulance to your real-time location. And these are for this extreme healthcare scenarios where you can't go to an urgent care and you really do need an ambulance. Well, here's a simplified way for you to get direct access to the ambulance regardless of where you're standing. And just to kind of dive into this for 1 second, imagine yourself, you're riding around in DC and you are on one of the scooters. You fall off and you think you broke your leg. Well, quite simply, you pull out this card, you press the 911 ambulance button, and then a signal gets transmitted over the cellular connection to the 5G network. It goes to our Haven backend servers, and we gather all of your emergency information. So like your blood type, your allergies, even your apartment number, and we transmit that to the 911 DC Right Care Right Now hotline. And from there, we give them digital information that they can use to help better assess the situation. And the 911 hotline can then dispatch an ambulance to your real-time location, and they can share that same information with the first responders so that they're preparing as they arrive to the scene. The ambulance comes to you, they pick you up with your broken leg, and they take you to the nearest hospital, and you get the healthcare outcome that you need. So this platform is empowered by 5G technology, and there's really 2 technological aspects that are driving this. One is efficiency in data transmission. So it allows us to create these magically sized devices that can connect directly to the internet without tethering to a smartphone. And the second piece is the Internet of Things infrastructure. So 5G will enable over 1 million devices to connect to the internet per square mile, and that's the type of connectivity that we need in order to deliver the solution to an entire city. And this really brings 2 features to the user. One is that you don't need to own a smartphone. So if you come from a lower income background, you're unable to afford a smartphone. If you're in the middle of an emergency and you broke your smartphone, or you don't even have access to a smartphone in general, you can still use the Haven Safe card to get the care that you need. And then the second, which is really important, and I think the panel kind of discussed this, is how do you deploy the solution? And by having a device that connects directly to the internet, we're able to pre-configure our solution so that you just receive this as a card in the mail. And it comes pre-registered with your health insurance. So if you get it from DC HealthLink, or you get it from Medicaid or Medicare, or you get it through your work, you bought it yourself, we give you one universal access point with no configuration required. You open up the envelope, it just works. Just to kind of summarize real quick, there's 3 main benefits to this. One is we're going to be lowering healthcare costs in the city substantially. Again, a couple $1,000s for every hospital that we switch to an urgent care, and a couple $100 more every urgent care we move to in-network. We're making this first entry point for healthcare universal, easy to use, and equitable. So it's the same for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you still have the same entry point to the healthcare system in our city. And then the last and final piece is that individuals are empowered to make good healthcare decisions. So rather than being dragged through the system and getting a surprise bill at the end, you're given solid upfront options that you can get the best care that you need depending on your circumstance. So come check us out. You can get a preview of our platform. It's available on the App Store right now. Haven, better healthcare together. And then we also have a hardware demo that we can come demonstrate with you after the show. So come check us out. Once again, my name is Ben Pugh, and we're Haven, better healthcare together. Thank you.
Dance of their solution, since we couldn't get their...
Cheese, everyone. There it is. Yeah, nice. Okay. I'm Brendan, by the way.
Brendan, Ben's there, Brendan's there. I haven't had food, neither of you. Cool. It's a good day. So during this transition, I'm just going to take a moment to ask our judges to stand up. We've got Tiffany from 5G Lab, Calamar from Mapbox. What's your rank again? Captain? Just Sean from MPD. And Daryl Levine from Fire and EMS. And Megan is standing in for Lee, but she still represents US Ignite at heart. And last but not least, from our panel, Keisha Mims from the East of the River Services. We had a lot of lovely, lively conversations. So, yes, we talked about you guys behind your backs. So, AV, how are we looking? One moment. Okay. How do I fill this space? Anybody want to ask a question? Oh, so let me tell you about the prizes. So we have never done. Thank you, Tiffany. We're going to take this show on the road. We have never done Civic Innovation Challenges before, but US Ignite contacted us, or somehow we found them, and they offered us money to give to people for a Civic Innovation Challenge. And we accepted it happily because we definitely wanted to engage our community, but we didn't really know what we were doing, and so we kind of just plunged right in. Did we do it perfectly? Absolutely not. But did we have a great time? Yes, we did. We met amazing people right here in DC and the DMV area. And we got to bring in our sister agencies to talk about innovating what they do on a daily basis. US Ignite, the first Civic Innovation Challenge we did was called Gigabit DC. And a little app called How's My Driving, you may have heard of. They won honorable mention because we saw potential, but they definitely needed to work out some kinks, which seems like they've done so far, and they've used the $9,000 that we gave them to do that. And the grand prize winner went to George Washington's transportation team called Road Vision, which is currently using AI or machine learning to analyze live video feeds to really help decision makers at DDOT make good infrastructure and safety decisions. So they're already working with the district government, which is really exciting and what we really want to see come out of these challenges. So now, fast forward, we've got these three great winners that we also hope we see a lot of potential with them, and the winner, I'm going to announce the money later, so not yet, but there is money. Stick around. Oh, we did give them, oh, thank you. So sorry, guys. This is so embarrassing. Tiffany, do you just want to do this? Okay. So we did, in order to encourage them to stick in the challenge and keep with us through the second phase, we gave each team around $4,400 to spend on whatever they needed to get their idea or solution to a prototype phase, which is what you're seeing today. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Brendan and Daniel.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Hi, everyone.
SafeLane.
My name is Dan Bernstein, and this is Brendan Freehart, and we're here to present our early prototype of SafeLane. Our solution is focused on the safety of our streets for cyclists, for those riding scooters, and other forms of multimodal transportation. So DC is very often ranked as one of the best cities for cyclists. About 5% of commuters get to work on bikes, and DC is actively investing in building new bike lanes all the time. But DC is also often ranked as one of the most dangerous cities for cyclists based off national statistics of the percent of traffic fatalities attributed for cyclists. And so these issues are part of DC's Vision Zero initiative to reduce traffic fatalities to zero by 2024. And DC is actively making investments to help cyclists, including about $2.7 million in the 2020 budget for enhanced bike lane safety enforcement, as well as increasing fines for blocking bike lanes. But if you look at the numbers, while traffic fatalities have been going down overall, the number of cyclist and pedestrian fatalities has actually been increasing. And so there are a number of community-driven solutions, such as How's My Driving, which is trying to shine a light on the obstacles that cyclists face on a day-to-day basis. Just on one day where they went out, them and their advocates, they logged almost 700 vehicles that were blocking bike lanes in one day alone. That's 700 opportunities for somebody to get very hurt, because cyclists often have to figure out, are they going to go on the sidewalk if there's a car in the bike lane? Are they going to go into the actual street where they might get hit by a different car? And so we think that DC and other cities need a better way to monitor their progress towards Vision Zero. Here are just some examples from How's My Driving of some of the obstacles that cyclists face. You see both cars that are often standing, parking, or even driving in the bike lane. And we are proposing a new solution to try to identify these hazards and address them before they become issues for cyclists. On this map of DC, you can see all the red dots are traffic incidences involving a cyclist in the past 12 months. There have been almost 500 reported incidents involving cyclists in 2019 alone. That's a really big issue. It's a lot of opportunity for people to get hurt. What you also have here is the yellow dots, which are traffic cameras that are openly available through DDOT online, where you can see the live images of what is going on in the streets. These cameras are used to monitor traffic congestion and help DDOT better manage our streets. But this is also an open data platform that people can use to try to improve the streets for other people. And another thing to know is that about a third of these 500 incidences on this map are within 200 meters of one of these traffic cameras. So the traffic cameras are often near places where people could get hurt through traffic incidences like these. And that is kind of what we are looking to address.
Thank you, Dan. So we built SafeLane. This is the challenge is how do we make these bike lanes safer? Obviously, this is a great place to bike. But obviously, there are still challenges that the city needs to meet in order to make it more safe. So what we built says it right here. We built a cloud application that takes two kind of underutilized technologies in this space, at least, and brings them together to make a few different features usable by municipalities or perhaps other users, right? So SafeLane has well, why don't I just show you the next slide here? Oh, wait, hold on. How do we go back? Here we go. This is what we went and tried to solve. Welcome to the technology people. What you were going to see is a video. If you go to our website, it's actually safelane.io, and you can kind of see this, but what I will do is describe it to you. So what we have is all across the country, actually, as well as in DC, we have traffic cameras, right? These traffic cameras are running continuously all the time. They're used for a lot of different things, but what we saw was that this is also data that's not being collected, data that's not being harnessed. At the same time, deep learning, kind of more colloquially known as AI, has gotten really accessible in the past, I'd say, a decade. So what we were able to do is we were able to apply that technology to that continuously running traffic camera footage. What you'll see in that video is actually from Arlington. We used Arlington as an example because it's a lot more kind of similar to the 5G environment that we were competing on, meaning that the frame rate is much quicker. I think in DC, you get a frame maybe every 2 seconds from these cameras. And 5G, you could stream very, very fast. And so what we do is we have this object detection model built from deep learning, and it's going to draw a little box around each object that it sees. It could be a car, it could be a person, it could be a stoplight. And then we identify where the bike lane is in that video. Now, I think you hopefully have gotten to the conclusion here. We can say whether or not there's an obstruction in that bike lane and what it is. Is it a truck? Is it a bus? Is it someone dropping off a rideshare person? So we got safe lane. That's where the idea came from. Okay, so what do we do with that? So first thing we can do is we can take all this data and kind of create a big blunt object for the city that's using it. You have so much more visibility going from almost zero in this space as to how safe, how frequently blocked, what type of blockages you're seeing, how long they're blocked. All that data is now available to whatever department that would be. In DC, we have DDOT actually doesn't actually do the enforcement, but they do a lot of the planning around this. And I believe, I know I'm in front of a lot of city people here, so what was that? Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Whoever's putting up the ballards is who I'm trying to say. So, yeah, like basically, okay, I'm someone from DPW. I'm trying to figure out how successful this new bike lane is on 14th Street, right? This is a tool that you could actually use to assess that. So if you have Vision Zero and you want to track against these goals, you now actually have data to do that. And the reason I say it's a blunt object is mostly because it's hard to convince somebody of anything these days without the data to back it up. So that's kind of how I think of it. One other thing that I don't think is in our presentation, no it's not, that we have as a feature because of the 5G environment is that we could have real-time notifications. It's not totally clear what that could be yet. Maybe a biker could use that. We've run into a little bit of a user experience issue with bikers checking notifications as they're biking as a safety mechanism, but the meter people, knowing this in real time is interesting, and it's certainly something we can do given exactly what we built already. Send you an email, send you a text, send you something in your browser. Okay, so do you want to talk about next steps?
Sure.
Yeah.
So as Brendan mentioned, we have built a core application that would have been in the video of how it actually processes video feeds. We are currently at the stage where we can do a few at a time, but there are hundreds of cameras available just within DC that you could use this platform on. And so we are going to use the funding that we got through DCx to fully build out our user platform where someone could go in, they could pick a camera from their local city, and they could draw the box that represents the bike lane, and they could just leave it. And they could come back the next day, the next week, the next month, and they would have all the analytics about how often bike lanes are blocked and what is the duration and the characteristics of those so that they can better prioritize resources and staffing around city planning and enforcement.
And we can go from streaming a few videos to thousands of videos with the cloud architecture. Just wanted to jump in. That's what I'm excited about, at least. Yeah.
Yep. And so we'd like to thank our funders, US Ignite and Octo for hosting the DCx competition. This funding has really allowed us to go from what was a side project to both of us that was really at its peak. We couldn't go any further because we didn't have any money to do it with, and now we have the funding to demonstrate what this means for cities to improve safety for cyclists and other multimodal transportation users. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. All right, last but not least, we have Julie and Dave from, I don't even know how to say, ENGR Dynamics. And it looks like Julie's gonna kick us off. We've got this. I made that for you.
Oh, thanks. Is there a magic play button for the video?
When it advances, will it just play?
Well, I need to tell you when to roll the video. I'll go. Can I just say play the video? Is that awesome? Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Finnell. I am from ENGR Dynamics, and this is the Public Safety Sensor Fusion, PS2F for short, which uses artificial intelligence to provide real-time assistance for first responders. DC first responders constantly protect the community in emergency situations, enduring long hours, dangerous circumstances, and a fleet of aging fire and EMS vehicles. While material solutions are underway to refresh the fleet of emergency vehicles, technological innovations provide an opportunity to lessen the toll on first responders. Improved tactical awareness allows incident commanders to better manage vehicle staging requirements, manage a limited pool of reserve vehicles, and reduce response times. Decentralized tracking of vehicle status and known issues could help prevent injuries, improve vehicle utilization, and assist maintainers in tracking and prioritizing repairs. Precise indoor positioning, when integrated with architectural plans, would guide efficient searches and allow real-time monitoring to improve first responder safety. Now, if you could please start the video. Thanks. So, our first demo involves easily transforming architectural blueprints into digital models, suitable for integration into either real-time navigational assistance or augmented reality applications. With the press of a button, the app scans a complex paper drawing and utilizes computer vision to reconstruct it digitally while correcting for a less than ideal starting image. The application also produces a basic 3D model of the location to better allow first responders to visualize the layout prior to entering a building. Here, we see a 3D overview of Roslyn. Oh no! One of the high-rises on Wilson Boulevard just reported an emergency. Let's highlight that building and zoom in for a closer look. Since it's a taller building, we'll probably want to deploy a ladder asset. A nearby traffic camera can provide a visual feed on the building. Several smoke detectors in close proximity have gone off on an upper floor, but no smoke is externally visible yet. Here, we see the progress of the deployed unit, along with the maintenance status of each part of the truck. It looks like it's in good shape to do the mission. In a real-world scenario, deploying location would be based on traffic patterns and unique geography. I'm watching a thing move. Finally, 5G provides substantially better interior geolocating abilities versus 4G. With 4G, you're able to provide navigational assistance to the correct building, but not any fine details. With 5G, the command chief can provide detailed information on hazards and routes every step of the way. So that's our product, and we look forward to answering your questions later. Thank you.
All right. Actually, Julie, you guys can stay up here. Dave, if I can have all the teams come up, we're going to do some question and answer. Adrian, can you man the second mic? Does anybody have a question for our teams? Anybody?
We got one in the back.
All right. Adrian's on his way.
Good afternoon. I don't remember your name, the gentleman in the gray suit. Ben, I wanted to ask you, you said that you have to press the card to activate, to send a signal, correct? How long do you have to press it, and does it do accidental presses? Or do you have to, does your skin have to touch it?
Great question. So the question was, how does the Haven Safe card handle accidental button presses? And is that captured correctly? So it's a great question. So there's two ways that we prevent accidental touches, right? The last thing you want to do is accidentally trigger an ambulance just because you sat on your wallet in a funny way. What we do is it's a capacitive touch button, so it requires human physical contact. It won't accidentally get pressed by like a bump in your pocket or something like this. The second piece is you have to hold it for 3 seconds. So the thought process here is that 3-second press will kind of weed out some of the errors. But then users can also either go onto the app or interact with it if they accidentally press it and cancel a request. So we've kind of thought it through in multiple different angles. But you're totally right. We don't want to accidentally trigger emergency responders when we don't mean to.
What is the method for replacing somebody's card? Say I lose my wallet, I have my card in it. How does someone get a replacement card that is tied to them? And what is the amount of time between losing your card and getting a new card?
Another great question. So the question was, how do we handle lost cards? And so it's similar to like how you would lose a credit card or how you would lose anything else. You call our hotline, we'll send you another one in the mail. It would take less than a week, but it would still have a little bit of lag time in between there. And then our back end, we have like a serial number tied to every single card. And so what we'll do is we'll deactivate the old one, send you a new one.
We got Lee up here.
Sorry, this is also about the safe card. Is there, I can see some concerns with if you can tell somebody where you are, having safety concerns, domestic violence comes to mind. How would you ensure that the people who are on that list and are given access to where somebody is in any given moment, that information is, first of all, secure and private, and that it's being shared with the right person?
So we have 2 ways that we kind of handle this one. So the first piece is that the Haven Safe Card doesn't track your location permanently. It only shoots out your location when you activate the button. So it's not like people can track you without necessarily you pressing the button explicitly. The second piece is that we have very granular privacy settings on our app, so you can choose very specifically who you want to receive have receive notifications, and so again you have to list the person on there. But again, I think it's a very fair question and concern, and we're a tool that can help bring the access of the care to those individuals. But I still think like further on the ground assistance would be needed for complicated domestic situations, things of this nature.
I have 2 questions. So one question would be for the bike lane. I'm a bike commuter, so I was very glad to hear about that app. What I was wondering is, a lot of times we don't have enough bike lanes, so we're actually on the street. Is there going to be a plan to also look at, bikes being just on the road or even on the sidewalk? I mean, to really have a whole picture of how to make bike commuting safer, I guess, in the DMV area. Another thing that I noticed with bike lanes is that a lot of times who parks there is actually either, a city vehicle, or sometimes people are moving, and so you actually have a sign that says, hey, people are legally being parked there. And so would there be a plan to coordinate with the city as to, are there other ways to maybe not block the bike lane when you have a service or a move going on? And then the second question that I have for everyone, because no one really talks about that, is what are the costs? I mean, for example, if there's a card, do people pay for it? Is there a cost to it? Things like that.
I'll answer the first 2 questions first. The last one is, what is the cost? I think if I understand correctly, your question to us initially was a big one, which is what is the status of kind of safety and biking in the city, right? Do I understand that correctly? I mean, how are we getting that in? Well, I can only speak from Safe Lanes. I don't know how to answer that one. That's a tough one. Safe Lanes perspective, which is that we have coverage wherever there will be kind of existing traffic camera feeds, and these feeds are all across the country, thousands and thousands of them. In terms of the sort of holistic state of biking, I think that we just got a new bike lane on U in Florida, I think, right? They're sort of putting it in and making streets safer for multimodal commuters. I think, I think it's a big culture shift that's going to have to catch up, and sometimes that takes years, right? So I think everybody involved is pretty bullish on the fact that it will be getting safer, but it's going to take, like someone on the panel said earlier, technology will not be the silver bullet. It'll be a set of tools, hopefully, that you can use to monitor or kind of instantly, tell whether or not something is working. With the second question, which is, and I'm glad you brought this up because this is my pet project, which is like signage and notifications and stuff. That's something we could enable. With integrating something like SafeLane with the city, DC or elsewhere will take some effort. I think generally when you're working on someone's workflow, you want to be something that solves a problem they already have, as opposed to giving them more work to do. We are probably going to be the latter, monitoring and analyzing how things are going. So I think that that's going to be probably our biggest barrier to getting in with a municipality right now. What would you say about that?
The only thing I would add on your second question has to do with coordination with the city is I would hope that we would be able to work with DDOT that after you install a new bike lane, such as an unprotected bike lane where you are essentially painting and praying that it's going to help people, that you could install maybe a camera for a few weeks or a few months afterwards that would allow us to gauge that. There are studies that are done both before and after bike lanes are installed, and this would be a way of understanding how people adjust to it and what kind of hazards still exist when you install bike lanes.
How much does it cost, Dan?
We don't know yet. As I said, we have done it for a few cameras at a time, but things are going to change drastically as we scale up. The back of the envelope estimates that I've done with that, it would be on the order of hundreds of dollars per month for a city to do hundreds of cameras, as opposed to thousands or millions or some other scale. That's the best estimate I can give you at this time.
And sorry to be so verbose before I pass the mic. I think what's attractive about our solution is that it is seemingly low cost relative to how much budget a department like DDOT or in a big city would have. All this stuff exists for the most part. It's living out there right now. We're kind of bringing it together.
So back to the cost question. Based on current technology and current costs, we can build and manufacture our card for about $10 a piece. Our electrical engineer says that he thinks he can get it down to $4 if you optimize the manufacturing process. But I think that it would be ideal, right, if the city would be somebody that pays for this, or the insurance company or the healthcare provider, so that it integrates into their systems. And just back of the envelope math, if we can get 15 people to change how they use their care in a given year, that's enough to pay for it for the entire city. So the ROI is absolutely crazy. And part of that's just the nature of being in the healthcare space, where the system is very fragmented today. It's very hard to use. And there's really a lot of opportunity to kind of close the gap in terms of how care gets delivered.
Thank you. So again, any solution that is incredibly expensive to use, it's just not going to work as well. So we picture kind of a free tier, because every model that you submit, every architectural plan that you upload, it improves that model. So if you need, 5 drawings a month or something, you are helping us by providing that kind of feedback to the model. And then if you need to process a whole bunch more, then there would probably be different tiers depending on what capabilities you need. If you need precise positioning, that's going to be a little bit more than just a basic scan of a model. But definitely as cheap as possible.
They'll be available for more questions afterwards. We're going to move this along. I know you're all hungry. We have a great announcement coming from George, but even better one coming right before. Nope, go for it.
I want to thank everyone for your patience. I know that some of you may have some stomachs that are rumbling. If you could please make sure you get one of these cards from me, and what you'll do is you'll go downstairs to American Sons, and it's pretty much their restaurant inside, but you'll actually get your lunch with this card, okay? All right.
All right, so bear with us for 5 more minutes, and we will unleash you. Okay, teams, thank you very much. You all did a wonderful job. SafeLane, I'm so sorry that I ruined your presentation. All right, we are going to announce who the winner is after George gives a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're working on together.
I didn't actually realise I'd be straight before your lunch, so sorry to keep you. We'll get this over quickly. We have a very exciting announcement, and yeah, I'd love to tell you guys all about it. So I actually, earlier on the panel with Lindsey, was talking about, I was actually saying technology isn't always the solution, and particularly when it comes to making innovation and technology ecosystems more inclusive, it's not all about technology. But I think one way that technology can be really, really productive is actually in creating transparency, in providing ways, in the true kind of spirit of the internet, of bringing information together and allowing you to showcase that for different groups. So also what I learned today a lot about the DC ecosystem is that it's very much spread out. A lot of cities we work with, they tend to have these kind of neighborhoods of like, tech people, hipsters, like big beards and Converses, and that's the tech neighborhood. But DC is really unique because it's kind of spread out across all these different neighborhoods. And I think that's quite special in terms of what you guys have and the flavor of your tech scene in terms of those different people from different communities contributing to the whole. So kind of to represent that whole, we wanted to look at launching something that would allow us to bring together in a transparent way all those different initiatives, whether it was events, incubators, workspaces, programs, or even individuals that had something to talk about around their community or their initiatives. So very kind of excited to announce HubDC.tech, which is going to be a new platform that will be launched by Octo and Lindsey and the mayor to actually look at what are all the different news, events, challenges for DC that entrepreneurs can approach, listing different news topics, opinion pieces, and to enable entrepreneurs and individuals just like you guys in this room to be able to actually have a platform to talk about what you're doing and what matters to you in DC's ecosystem. Also looking at promoting different events, having one place to see all these different initiatives, and to be able to browse also by individual neighborhoods. So being able to actually drop down and look into specific areas of DC, what events, what jobs, what courses are right on your doorstep. Looking as well at how we can empower people to be able to contribute content to their ecosystem, whether that's jobs that they're looking to promote, whether that's certain events that they're hosting that they think the rest of the ecosystem should be able to look at and discover. And really importantly, like understanding as well what kind of courses, skills initiatives, because there is just so much going on in DC, and providing that unified front of those opportunities that are available to everyone. Cool. Thank you.
Pretty cool. Awesome. Thank you, George. We have handy dandy little cards, since if you didn't catch the name, that you can grab from us. Everybody in the Smire DC shirt should have one. We're really excited. And the main point is that it's not about us, it's about you. Everybody here is a part of this ecosystem, and we want you to be able to open that platform and see yourself there. So if we're not doing a good job, you make sure you tell us. And the second big thing is that they're hiring a content editor. So if anybody from the Express is in the room, we just lost the Express, we can come talk to us and we can tell you where that job link is. All right, last not least, let's have the teams back up here. We have Megan from US Ignite who's gonna announce our winner. 3. Yep. All right, okay.
Hi, everyone. In third place, let's give a round of applause for ENGR Dynamics. Second place is Haven. And that means I'm proud to announce that first place is Safe Lane. Congratulations, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We are here. The room is ours till 2:30, so don't feel rushed. We're going to take some pictures with our judges and our teams, but you definitely need to go get something to eat.